From Louisiana's home team, this is Fox 8 Morning Edition at 7 a.m.
Time now 7:45. Many people date co-workers and they have common interests and they get to know each other at the office, but sometimes those relationships can end up causing some big problems for both employers and employees if they don't last, if those relationships don't last. And attorney Michelle Anderson joins me now with more, and kind of in Valentine's week, kind of a good time to be talking about this. And we were both saying we've seen people where it works out, it's great, but there are other cases where it could really go south very quickly.
Exactly. And if you think about relationships that you've had, most of us have had a breakup. Most of us have had a bad breakup. And if you think about having to come to work and see that person on a daily basis, particularly if you were their boss or they were your boss, you can imagine the kind of drama that can present in the workplace. So sometimes it's best not to go there unless you're really sure that this is a person that you think you're going to be with for a long, long time.
If you know and you have that feeling, okay, could possibly last, maybe stick with it. What are some of the dangers that people come in contact with in situations like this?
Certainly for employers, there is a risk if you allow coworkers to date, or particularly subordinates and supervisors to date. You run the risk that at some point that relationship might end, and the subordinate employee might say, I was forced into the relationship by the supervisor, I was promised things, I was threatened with my job security, and then you're looking at a potential for a sexual harassment case. And so a lot of times employers need to think about, I should at least have a policy at the very least that prevents people from the same supervisory chain supervising those and dating those below them at the very least. Other employers have a policy where they just don't allow any kind of fraternization in the workplace, or if they do allow it, it has to be disclosed to the company so they can enter into what's called a love contract, for lack of a better description. And basically that's where they have to disclose the relationship. They sit down with human resources and they agree. I've entered into this relationship voluntarily. It's consensual. I understand the company has a policy that prevents sexual harassment and discrimination. I understand that if this relationship ends, that I need to act professionally in the workplace and not retaliate against the other person. Or if I feel like this relationship is interfering with my ability to do my job, I can bring that forward to human resources and have it addressed. Because I find when you don't have those safeguards in place, that's when the drama really starts.
And there are workplaces in this city that I know of that I've heard where you cannot be in a relationship, where you can't have spouses. If you're married, you can't work for the same company.
Correct.
It's not unheard of.
It's absolutely not unheard of, and I know that there have been times where people have actually had to leave their jobs and go to another company because the relationship was at a point that they were probably going to get married or it was going to continue, and the company said you have to make a choice, and they can certainly do that.
You talked about the employer and some things they can do and how it's important to have the policy, the love contract, if you want to call it that, in place. But what about for the employees, some things that they can do to ensure that, you know, this is not interfering with work and your ability to get things done?
Right. I always say keep it classy. If you really are going to be dating a coworker, you know, keep it out of the workplace. I've worked with people, you don't even know they're married or you don't even know they're dating because they don't bring that into the workplace. And if you have an issue with them, make sure that you're addressing it outside of work, and again, keeping it out of the workplace. And if you really think this is the one, you know, certainly you might want to date them, but I always say really tread cautiously there, because again, relationships end, and a lot of times they do end badly, and people can revert to those old high school broken-hearted behaviors, and then all of a sudden everybody that you work with is in the middle of it. And so you just don't want to be that person that brings that into the workplace.
Yeah, if you have a question about the relationship, maybe it's a good time to kind of step back and say, okay, is this worth it, getting involved with someone who I have to work with daily?
Exactly. I mean, if you're thinking this is a fling, someone's going to get attached.
Probably
say no.
And somebody's heart's going to get broken.
Exactly. Always say no strings, and people get hurt. So yes, you definitely need to really think that through the whole way through before you cross that threshold.
All right, some great advice this morning, especially on this Valentine's week. Local attorney